So today I'm going to show a quick video about how to clear out Docker space. Basically, this is designed mainly for my students who I, encourage to use Docker, and I provide them tools and data through the Docker system. But, the Docker virtual hardbox gets bigger and bigger the more you use it. Default goes up to about 20 gig. Even though you're working with, Docker images that are on like 1 gig, it kind of keeps blowing up bigger and bigger. So some of my students have limited hard drive space. Also, if you fill up your Docker space, it makes it impossible to back up. I actually had a student that was doing some work project, and it made it really difficult for us to extract her Docker image just because it was completely full. So I'm not sure whose fault it is, if it's Docker or VirtualBox, probably a little bit of both. But this is kind of a poor space management. So this is something I do quite often. Windows, I'm sure, has a .docker file, but I don't have a Windows set up in front of me to check right now. But on a Mac, the files are stored in the Docker folder in their home directory. So you kind of want to do this. I like to do this du command just to see how much space my Docker is taking up. As you can see here, it's 13 gigabytes. Sorry, I forgot to open up something here. So the first thing we want to do is start our Docker machine. I have it turned off at the moment, or actually it's already running. I'll save us some time. And then you of course have to set up the evaluation. So now you can kind of take a look what Docker images you have. Or let's take a look at our containers. I currently don't have any containers running right now. And if I do the -a command, it'll show containers that have stopped and so forth. And you can see my containers are completely clean. But if you do have any containers that you'd like to save, that's what the Docker commit command is for. So you'll see your container ID. This is the image ID, but it's very similar container ID. You can commit that, and it'll convert your Docker container into a Docker image. The next thing is you want to take a look at your Docker images. Right, so I have a couple here downloaded CentOS, which is the basis what I use for my work here. Sure, I'm looking forward to upgrading, but nonetheless, we try and do some legacy report for a lot of different things. If you do a Docker images -a, you'll see that it keeps incremental updates. So you can see here it started off CentOS, and it got progressively bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, until now we have what the current version is, my 1.8 gigabyte image. This is a yum update here that's doing that one. So if I wanted to save that image, for example, your options are, if you have a Docker repository account, a Docker hub, you can just push your image like such. I'm not going to save this image right now. I have it backed up already. Otherwise, you can actually save your images to a file. Actually, I've forgotten. I should have written down the command. Okay, so I can save my image to a file, give it the output file. I will update my command. I don't know if I have to do the output first. We'll see. Okay, so I have the order wrong on my command. I should double check things before I run things. So now it's saving my image to a file. Oops, sorry about that. I'm not actually interested in saving this image, but you can see Appian Docker image tar. If you're interested, you can compress it using gzip or something like that. I'm just going to delete it because I'm not interested in saving the data. But it's always important to back up your data before doing the purge, which is I'm applying right here. So first thing I'm going to do is get rid of all my Docker containers. I don't have any, so this command won't do anything. Next, I'm going to get rid of my Docker images. It's a little involved here. So I just got to get rid of all those incremental ones. And you can see once it gets rid of some of them, all the others disappear. So I kind of run the command twice. Okay, I have no images to report anymore. My Docker is completely empty. I find it's always a good idea to kind of upgrade your Docker machine. So for some reason, you have to have the Docker machine running, and then it has to stop the Docker machine to do the upgrade, and then it has to start it again. It's one of those things. So it looks like mine was up to date. But anyway, we have to wait for it to completely update the Docker machine, so we can stop it again. I'll add a stop command. to our next step here. Alright, so let's stop our Docker machine. It's nice, one of the newer versions of Docker, they stopped requiring us to type the word default all the time. So, but if you're using an older version. Alright, so we can watch the progress of the Docker machine in my VirtualBox Manager window. You can see it is still running at the moment. Alright, it is now powered off, so what I like to do is I like to right click and then remove, and then it's important I like to delete all the files. Alright, so now we have a nice clean VirtualBox machine, so I'll set that off to the side here. Now we like to delete the Docker machine files. Again, I'm not sure where it's located on Windows, but you do want to delete in the Docker primary folder. It's in the folder machine and then machines, and you want to delete the default image. I would leave everything else, all the stuff in the machine and the machines alone. We just want to delete the default Docker machine. And this will lose all the images and all the containers. So if you haven't backed them up, you can say goodbye to them. So we go back and we can check how much space is our Docker image taking up now. You can see it's only 36 megs. So if you delete too much, you may have to reinstall Docker. So now we want to create a new Docker machine. You'll see here that I have a couple of things here. Since I'm running on a Mac and Windows as well, you'll use the driver VirtualBox. What's nice about running on Linux is you don't need to have this VirtualBox go-between. Next is I like to increase the default VirtualBox size so that it's 35 gig, you know, whatever, depending on how much hard drive space you have. I've left students that only have like 15 gig available, but it's kind of nice to have a little extra room, even if you fill up your hard drive, because the VirtualBox image has kind of exploded. Then you can maybe delete a movie or something like that and get that extra room so you can back up your data or something like that. So that's why I like to do it. So here's the command to create a new Docker machine. So it's going to create it. You can actually kind of watch its progress in VirtualBox a little bit too, which may be a little exciting. So this step will take a little bit of time. See there, created our VirtualBox image, and of course now we have to wait for it to automatically start. I should really look in to see if there's a command that says upgrade but don't start the machine, or create a new image but don't actually start it, because that would save me some time in the settings. So it does take a little bit of time, so if you're curious, you can always show the boot up command here. It's kind of cheating, but see what it's actually doing while it's waiting for an IP. You can actually see that it's actually doing some stuff in the background. Alright, looks like it's done. Alright, so I'm going to close this window and it's going to give me an error message. Yes, we want to continue running in the background. So, alright, but of course the next command is to Docker machine stop, because I want to configure VirtualBox settings, which you cannot do while the machine is running. So settings. A lot of the stuff I do in my Docker requires extra memory, so I boost it up. I have 16 gigabytes, so I give it 12. It's in the valid range there. I don't change in the other ones. And then processors, I usually like to give it 3. So it's happy with that. And the second thing is, for people doing work with my stuff, we like to do the port forwarding. The first one we like to do is HTTP, and I always set the default host port to 80 so it doesn't conflict with any system things. Then lately I've been forwarding MySQL, so 3306 allows me to connect to the MySQL server in the Docker machine from my system. And the last one we use VNC to connect to our system, so I'll enter that here. The only system I've got to work is where you leave the host IP and the guest IP blank. So all that is now set up. Some amount of memory, amount of processors, add port forwarding. So now we are finished. So we can start our machine up again, which, you know, may be exciting to watch. Probably more interesting to watch than listen to me ramble in the open space here. VirtualBox starts with a V. Alright, so let's why don't we just show our machine boot up here. So it's booting the kernel. Yada yada yada. Oh, there's some error messages there. I haven't paid attention to this very much. So. Usually when I'm waiting for my Docker machine to boot, I just go off and do something else. Okay, we can see that it's now fully booted, so we'll let it continue running. And like I said, we don't need our VirtualBox anymore, so I will quit. All right, so we need to do our env command. So I'll just copy and paste all this stuff down here for my full. So we get the Docker machine start. Now we need to do set up the environmental variables. Now we can do Docker images, and we can see that it's completely so. We can load our saved files if we still have them. I added the gz at the end, assuming you did the gzip. You can pull images, so we can do Docker pull CentOS:6, and it's going to pull that down. And basically, you can see we've completely restored our Docker image, and it's no longer taking up any space. So let's see how much space we are taking up. Remember, I was using 13 gig at the beginning. Now we're down to 105, and we have a Docker image of CentOS ready to go. One of the things I do, I have a full Appian install for those students that are working with me. They'll like pull my VOSAP Appian, or I do a custom one for them. Or you can build a new image from a Docker file. This is what I do. So go to my folder here, which I'm already there. Oops, I guess it's. And then from here I can do my Docker build command, and it will go on and build my very, very large 2 gigabyte Docker file, which has basically all the tools you need to do cryo-electron microscopy and solve, well, it only goes up through 2D classification. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video.